Have you ever spoken with someone face to face, in person? You met with them, you had business to conduct. Maybe you worked for the same company, um, maybe different companies. Maybe you went to his office or her office for a meeting. But have you ever talked to someone for a little bit, a few minutes, and then you walked away from that conversation, from that interaction, feeling worse than you did before? I, I had that happen. This happened a few years ago, and I was recalling that today, and I thought, based on what I learned later about that individual, because at the beginning I didn't know what he was. I didn't understand the terminology, but I thought today, based on that, I mean, put it this way: if I'm running into people like this and I'm having that reaction, I know you are also. I know it's happening to you. So I thought, do a you know do a talk on that. So have you ever spoken with someone? You met with them, you did your business, whatever, and then you left. You parted company with that person, feeling worse than you felt before. You weren't tired, but you just felt off, like something happened to me. Some Yeah, I don't feel right. There's something going on there, and I can't put my finger on it. I don't know exactly what it is, but you felt drained, or you were irritated, and prior to meeting with them you were fine, and you actually were in a good mood, and you went in there, and then something occurred during that meeting that now you're leaving there, and you're, wow, I'm really not in a good mood anymore. What happened to my mood, or you feel just a bit more down, a bit more heavy for no clear reason. And it makes you think, what just happened? What was all that? What is that all about? And the thing is, this can happen as you and I interact with anyone. It can be a friend, someone, he's my friend, she's my friend. It can be a neighbor. It can be a coworker. It can be someone you're dating, right? Someone you're seeing romantically. Might be a spouse. It might be family, extended family, out a little bit. Maybe your spouse's relations, someone in there, someone in that mix. The thing is, it can be anybody, really. It's nothing specific. You have a conversation with this person, and nothing obviously wrong is nothing overbearingly wrong is said during that interaction. Pardon me. Iced tea. But afterward, something in you just doesn't feel right. Something's off. When I started talking to them, everything's cool. But then as we interacted, something, this, that, whatever, and now as an end result, I'm not interacting with that person anymore. That conversation's over, but I feel different than I did before that started. And a lot of times that'll happen, and we'll talk to other people about it, or we'll hear through the media different things, social media, is loaded with it. And we'll try to explain it in really simple, pat ways. Like we'll say, well, they must be toxic. That person must just be toxic. Or, well, they're negative. Or, well, they're draining. That person's a drainer. And sometimes that's accurate. Sometimes that's true. But that's not the entire picture. Even if it is true, that's not everything, because I was involved in that conversation also, right? I was part of that also. I was there. So if I really look at it, something is happening inside me during that interaction. It's not 100% that other person. Something's happening inside me also. And it took me quite a while to figure this out when I, was pondering, thinking about that one particular man that I remember. I didn't have to see him all the time, but I'd have to see him often enough. And when we did interact at the beginning, it was fine. I didn't think anything of it. Like we met, we started doing business, and I'd go see him. Usually I'd go to him, and we'd sit in his office and chew the fat a little bit, because, that's what you do when you're not in an extreme hurry. And but then I'd be walking back out to my car in the parking lot, and I was like, we worked at different companies. Thankfully, I didn't have to relate with him every single day, but I did have to go see him. And here's what happens. Here's what I came up with. I wrote out some notes and made a list. While I'm speaking with them, I'm reacting. There are reactions going on, and I'm tightening. I'm getting tight. I'm tensed up. I started to detect that, like I wasn't being relaxed. I started out relaxed, but as time progressed and I got to know him more and more, I really didn't like what I saw. I really didn't like it at all. So I would get tense. I didn't need to be tense at all, but I got tense. That was part of like how I dealt with it. That was really all I knew how to do. So physiologically, the body would get tense, tight. I'd get tightened up. And then that told me, well, that means that I'm trying to manage the conversation instead of just letting it be what it is. Tension indicates that I'm trying to control or manage the conversation, or I want a certain outcome and I may want it quicker than I'm getting it, And I noticed also that I was adjusting myself internally. I needed, or the company I worked for needed, cooperation from him and his company. So I was going along with things on the surface, even though inside of me, I actually did not agree with it. So I had to interact with this man, but I was not a big fan of his. There were other people I would much rather go and spend time with, but I had to deal with him because he was he controlled what we needed. So I wasn't saying what I really thought. And I realized that. And that made me hold back. I was holding back too much. I'm saying this because maybe you have found yourself in a similar situation. Holding back is not, I'm not being myself. if I'm holding back, if I'm holding anything back. So the end result, the feeling of not being what I am, it's not always really obvious. It can be faint. That tension I mentioned can be slight. The resistance to what's happening can be kind of slight, and I might even ignore that feeling in the moment, but it's still there, right? Yeah. I think we've all dealt with people that kind of fall into this category. So this is why I noticed all of these things. This was why I felt worse afterward. See, it's not really because of them, but it was the way I was reacting toward them during the interaction with them. It was because I felt the way I did after, because of what was happening inside me while I was with him, while I had to sit in that office. And I was kind of like agreeing and this and that. So anyway, I'm not, this is not about, I'm not blaming myself. And if you find this, if you find some commonality with me in this, if this has happened to you, you don't want to blame yourself either at all, because this is all part of learning and life and everything else. And that's what we do here. We just learn. This life is one big classroom, and class is always in session. I don't think it's ever been out of session, right? So this isn't about, we're not going to beat ourselves up. We're not going to, blame ourselves for anything. This is just the way things are sometimes. And it's not and then this is key too, because it's really easy for me to fall into, oh, well, he's just toxic. Well, I don't like him. He's toxic. Or that was a toxic man. Or he didn't know how to relax, and how about his oddness made me feel odd. How about that one? But see, I can't, that's kind of a cop-out. That's not taking right responsibility for myself. Because if I am observing myself, and that's the work that we do, if I'm observing myself, the other person can do and be and say anything, and it won't affect my true self. If I'm observing myself, it will affect and make vibrate my false self. My false self may not like it at all, but my authentic self, the part that I'm working on living from, getting toward, making contact with, and living from, isn't going to be bothered in the slightest. And that's the real work. The work says use everything to wake up. Everything, including difficult people, especially difficult people. That took me a bit to get to that point, but that's pretty much. And then see, it's easy now because I can pull the camera back and I can look at the whole thing. But that was a pretty good example of a time in my life when I really could have used the work. I really could have used self-observation more than I did. And at that time I was studying, but application, it takes a while before before we start to apply the work, the self-observation in all situations. It takes time before we develop that habit. So even though, yes, I was studying self-observation at the time when I had the meetings with that man, but I was still at the level of, let me just, it's far easier for me to just say, oh, he's toxic. Oh, he's a difficult person. Or, oh, he's a strange one. See, because again, in reality, I should be using, if it is toxic, I should be using that toxicity. I should be using his difficultness, what I call his difficultness. Maybe I'm difficult to him. I'm sure I might have been. But see what I mean? So that's kind of like, if I'm supposed to be observing myself and using everything to wake up from the psychological slumber, then I can see that as a period when I was asleep. I fell asleep. See? And then the next time that happens, like maybe tomorrow I'll be somewhere, maybe today, and I'll run into a difficult person. Maybe then, because I'm remembering that time now, but maybe the next difficult person I run into, I will remember, oh yeah, go fully awake, become fully aware in this moment right now, and just observe, just see what happens. Just see what happens. So we're not blaming, we're learning from these situations is what we're doing. And we're learning to see these interactions clearly. That's the important part, because when I don't see it, I leave that conversation or that interaction carrying something. And if I'm fully alert, fully aware, I won't carry anything. There will be no residue. I will not carry any residue from that interaction. And when I do carry the residue, it's because I fell asleep or because I didn't wake myself up sufficiently prior to that. I didn't study myself. So who is at fault? Is it Mr. Toxicity on the other side of the desk, or is it me? Well, I got to take the self-responsibility. It's me. That was a golden opportunity. And the next time that happens, like my mind just flashed on a mechanic and I need to get an oil change. There's a local mechanic and he has the best prices, pardon me, for oil changes. And so I go to him. But he's really, let's just say, rough around the edges too. But I go there because it's a better rate. I can save like $25 by going to him as opposed to somebody else, and even more than that. Because the other place up like a mile northeast of me, they charge 100 and I forget what they charge, but this guy charges 85. And that's it. And his assistant is fantastic. A great young man. He's from El Salvador, and he knows cars inside and out. And he's young and thick and strong. And I saw him pick up the. I asked him what it was. I said that's a '57 Chevy rear end. He said close, Nova. And close enough, I guess. But a friend of mine used to have one of those in his garage, and that was the only reason I knew it, because it looked almost the exact same thing. So this man's assistant's fantastic. So I like going to the shop, but only if the assistant's there, which is usually early in the morning, because you don't have to deal with these people. It's better when you don't. So when we are with these people, maybe they during the meeting, maybe they complained the whole time, and these are just like examples, and I just sat there absorbing it. See, that could happen. Maybe you have done that also, right? A complainer, and maybe instead of saying, okay, well, let's get back to why I'm here, or yeah, turning the conversation back to why I'm here, refocusing everything. Maybe I sat there and they complained one time too many, and I absorbed their complaint. Have you ever heard a complainer is a drainer? And to be honest, that's what part of me didn't really. I didn't like it. What this man. That's he would. I don't want to get into what he would start trying to talk about with me, but he wanted me to stay in his office longer than I wanted to, and so he would like put out different topics and things like that, and he wanted to talk about like local and state politics, which bores me to no end. Things like that. And I was just like, I gotta, can we just finish this so I can get out of here and move on? So he was kind of a complainer. And probably I tried to be polite and I sat there a little too long and took it. Or how about this? When someone, they know you need them more than they need you. And so they'll make little digs and they'll start digging. And instead of saying, no, enough of that, or don't talk to me like that. How many times do you got to tell that to somebody before they stop? Usually once. And because have you ever brushed off a dig? Like somebody says something, it's not quite right, but you brush it off and you say, well, that's just the way they are. Oh, maybe they were having a bad day or whatever, right? We give them the benefit of the doubt. But there are people out there who will do that just to get a rise out of you and also to feel better about themselves. Can you believe that? There are people out there who will take a poke at you because it gives them a little thrill that somehow they're better than you. By demeaning you, by discounting you, they feel better about themselves. They're out there. And this is why I'll speak for myself. I really my ears need to be open during conversation because, these things snowball. It starts with a little tiny thing and they're testing. A lot of people do this. They can't just be straight. They got to be, messing around like that. To me, that's not cool at all. But there are people out there, let's just say with and without a conscience. And if they don't have a conscience, they'll say nasty things. So be alert and be warned and be ready. And sometimes also we feel pressured to be agreeable. Whatever they're saying, sometimes we feel pressured that we're supposed to just agree with it instead of disagree, or instead of just, again, let's refocus on why I'm here, So in the moment, we ignore these things, but afterward, we feel it. And if I'm wide awake, I won't ignore it. If I'm wide awake, I'll even say something back to what's the right word? Like if somebody says something sharp, if I'm alert, I'll know what to say in that moment to check them, to put them in check. to let them know you're not going to say that to me and get away with it, right? So when we interact with these people, maybe I've described somebody you know, and when we interact with these people, if this keeps happening, you start to notice a pattern. And the pattern is, gee, there are certain people I always feel bad around. Always. Every time I go there, when I leave, I don't feel good. I feel drained. I feel tired. I feel not straight. I don't feel right, you know. I don't feel relaxed. So when there's friction, we feel it. But instead of seeing these things the moment that they are happening, lots of times we only notice it after the interaction, after the conversation ends. So the real question then is, can I start noticing these things while the conversation's happening? Can I be working on my, because it's easy to forget this. You know, when I'm home, I'm studying, you know, self-observation, yeah, but we're not, it's easy to forget and to not do that. But again, we carry this with us everywhere we go. We bring self-awareness with us everywhere. In that sense, it is a movable feast. It goes with us. We don't have to be in any certain place to be noticing what our hands are doing, what our feet and body are doing, what the mind is thinking, which emotions are going through me, what reactions I'm having. I can observe myself anywhere at any time. And that's the whole point of this, is the other person is going to do and say what they do and say. And I can't change that at all. But I can observe myself in action. I can observe myself as I'm relating with them, just to see what's happening inside me. And then I'll be alert and I'll be aware. And that's a much better place to be. When I'm alert and aware, there's much less chance of any residue from that other person remaining with me when that interaction or that conversation ends. It's just not going to be there. So maybe I'm sitting with them and I can notice a little tension come in, or I can notice if I'm agreeing out loud to something, like, oh yeah, that's right, but inside I really don't feel that way. Okay, we do that with certain people. If we get intimidated, if we're sitting with the VP and maybe, you know, they're really hardcore, and you know, there are people out there who intimidate us. They're holding all the cards and I'm coming in with nothing, and I'm at his desk. I mean, there's all kinds of, you know, in the business world, family in the house. So all kinds of situations where, you know, you can be intimidated by other people. And when we are intimidated, we say and do things that are not what we usually are. The thing is, awareness changes all of that. With awareness, we will prevail. So once I see it clearly, I don't have to walk away wondering why I feel worse. You know, I understand now. Now I know why I feel worse, because I fell asleep. I wasn't self-observing during that interaction. So when when I work diligently at remaining awake, remaining in the moment, noticing myself in action, when I keep doing the work, even during tough interactions like that, um, I'm going to prevail. I'm going to end up much better. I'm not going to carry the residue of that other person with me.